I hate intros. I'm Standing on a Million Lives Season 1, Episode 1. We kick things off with the main character, Yuusuke Yotsuya, who's kind of a quiet kid in class. One day after class, he notices two girls paying an odd amount of attention to him. The first character is the sexy blonde and EU Shindo, and the girl with her is the timid, fragile Kusei Hakuzaki. Once his teacher is done talking to him, he is then transported to another world and nearly killed by a sea creature. When he gets to safety, he sees the two girls from his class waiting for him. They don't really get a chance to say anything because they come face to face with the Game Master. The Game Master then goes on to explain the rules and what's expected of them. They have 14 days to work together and fulfill the village chief's request. This is one of 10 quests that they're going to be confronted with. Once each quest in the 10 quest series is completed, they get another member from the real world to help them with the following quests. He also learns that Shindo is a level 3 wizard with the wind attribute and Hakuzaki is a level 1 warrior. The Game Master then spins a wheel to find Yotsuya's new class. My boy gets a tiny bit fucked because he lands on the unlikely farmer class. With his class decided, the Game Master then leaves to let them get started on their quest. The two then fill Yotsuya on what exactly is going on. Shindo was the first to be brought into this world and had to complete a quest by herself. Once she had completed that quest, she went back to the real world where the Game Master tasked her with another quest of befriending Hakuzaki. The next time Shindo was brought into this world, Hakuzaki was also transported with her. After the two had completed their second quest, they returned to the real world and were ordered to be alone with Yotsuya. They also explained that by squinting, he can bring up a HUD that contains all of his weapons. The problem is he can only wield weapons in his class, so all he has is a hoe and a sickle to work with. He realizes that pain and sensations are a fraction of what they experience in the real world. While walking, they come across a log point. The log point stores scenes from events that have already happened, and you can access them by touching it. When Yotsuya touches it, he sees Hakuzaki having a breakdown in front of Shindo because she wasn't exactly mentally prepared to get transported to another world. Everyone comes across a group of goblins cueing Yotsuya's first fight in the new world. This winds up not going so well because his weapon breaks and we find out that the other two are fucking useless. Shindo, the mighty wind wizard, is a glorified fan, and Hakuzaki is just a pussy. After Hakuzaki throws her sword, we see that Yotsuya tries to pick it up, but he can't. Instead, he tries switching to his hoe, it immediately breaks, and then he gets hit and killed. He has an out-of-body experience, but then comes back to life soon after. When somebody dies, they respawn after 30 seconds has passed. This seems pretty OP, but if all of them die at the same time, then they actually die in real life also. With that in mind, Shindo hangs back to stay safe while Yotsuya continuously throws himself at the goblins, chipping away at them and ultimately killing all of them. Later that night, we find out they have a map of the areas they've explored and also that Yotsuya's weapons are going to take 5 days to regenerate. He also learns that every time they complete a quest, the reward for completing the quest is that they get to ask the Game Master one question. When Shindo completed her quest by herself, she asked why she was chosen. The Game Master simply responded that somebody you know requested it. After they had completed the second quest, Hakuzaki asked, "Who are you people?" He then just responds that they are from the future. While Yotsuya is out slaying goblins to level up a bit, he then hears a commotion, and when he returns to camp, he finds that Hakuzaki is badly injured. He sees a massive creature nearby who had grabbed Shindo and eats her alive. Knowing that they can't defeat it as they are now, he grabs Hakuzaki and makes a run for it. When Hakuzaki wakes up, she realizes that her hand isn't regenerating, most likely because it was eaten. They figure the same thing with Shindo, so since she was eaten, it's likely she won't respawn. They arrive at a town where we learn that all of the locals in this world recognize people from the other world and call them heroes. They had gone there to talk to the village chief and find out what he wants so that they can complete the quest and go back to their world. The problem with that is the chief is asking them to defeat the troll that had killed Shindo. Episode 2. Yotsuya goes out by himself to fight some monsters so he can rank up in order to fight the troll. He keeps on fighting goblins until he's on the brink of level 10. Then out of nowhere, he realizes that Kasue was slain. When he gets back to the village, he realizes it's under attack and that's why she was killed. She isn't reviving, so he can assume that she was eaten by the troll also. He finds a log point of Kasue talking with a little kid. She explains that in real life, she has a condition that prevents her from doing any strenuous activity. Because of this, she's not exactly used to doing so many physical things, which is why she's so fucking useless. Despite that, she still feels bad about being a burden on everybody and is trying trying to get better about it. We also see that she was eaten by the troll because she was trying to protect some of the villagers. When he starts fighting the troll, he realizes that it can only jump forward like a frog. If he changes directions at the last second, then the troll can't get to him. He gets put in a bad spot and the troll is about to get him, but then he sees a goblin, so he rushes him to get his level 10. When he stabs the goblin, he gets level 10 and the world freezes. Because he's level 10, the game master then shows up and spins the job roulette again. This time he lands on the chef class. The chef class is just added to his kit, so it doesn't actually replace the farmer kit. The chef ability allows him to get a blade as well as seize the internal organs of the troll. When time resumes, he uses both his knife and his new knowledge to stab the troll in the stomach. Because his stomach was cut open, Shindo and Kisue were both set free and respawn. Even though they're all back, they still don't have an attack strong enough to penetrate the troll's muscles. They change up their strat and Yotsuya jumps into the troll's stomach and stabs him from within. This creates an opening for Shindo to jump on his back and launch a burst of air into the troll's head and pops him like a balloon. Now that the troll is defeated, the game master shows up and Yotsuya gets to ask his question. He decides to ask the game master after the 10th quest is completed what happens to them. He shows them the future where Tokyo is under attack. The three of them are there defending the city when a massive monster comes down from the sky. After getting a good look at the creature, they then appear back in their world. No time had passed while they were in the other world, so now they have to go about their daily routines as usual. In the last couple of scenes, we see that Yuusuke is in a bit of a dilemma. He's trying to decide if Tokyo, the city that he hates so much, is actually worth saving. Episode 3. While out for a run, Yuusuke gets a call from the game master. The game master tasks him with going to find a girl and hitting on her. While following the game master's instructions, he is led to a group of girls stripping and taking pictures of another girl. The game master tells him that the girl being bullied is the one he has to hit on. Fearing that the girl might commit suicide if the other girls post her pictures on the internet, he decides to break all of the other girls' phones. The three girls run off, so Yuusuke escorts the victim back home. This is when he meets and learns a little bit more about Yuka Tokitate. The girls had targeted Yuka because she was talking shit about one of them, so she wanted to get her back. 2 weeks after the incident, the original trio plus Yuka are transported to the other world once again. When Yuka rolls for her job, she gets Wizard of Heat. They also learned that as they get more members, things will get harder, so their respawn timer went from 30 seconds up to 40 seconds. Their next quest consists of 2 steps. The first step is traverse 5% of the map, and the second step is deliver the goods to Rado Dorbo. He doesn't specify what the goods are, but they have 40 days to complete this. While walking through a field, a huge insect crashes into the ground nearby them. It spawns some sort of centipede thing that launches bugs at them and starts one-tapping them. We learned that Yuka is a low level, so she's just as useless as the other two. Yuusuke is pretty much forced to do everything while the girls stand nearby and just watch him. He jumps on the bug's back and cuts off its legs one at a time until it can't fight anymore. Once that's done, Kisue is gonna have to deal the killing blow with her sword. She's still fucking useless, so Yuusuke has to hold her hand to guide her on how to kill it. We then get a flashback of Shindo when she was a little girl and she was apparently a problematic child. She kept getting into fights with other kids until she meets an older girl named Sayuri who encourages her not to. Sayuri had something wrong with her face, and this ultimately led to her killing herself. This was a pretty defining moment in her life, and in the last couple of scenes we see that she's still having nightmares about it today. Episode 4. Sayuri was apparently being bullied in school, which was what led to her suicide. Shindo wound up being bullied also, but not by other kids. It was actually the adults in her life who targeted her because her father was a biker thug who made their lives difficult. When everybody returns to the village that they had saved earlier, they find it in ruins and with nobody around. They come across a man who says that he's been stopping by this village for the past 5 years and it's always been deserted. This means that time moves faster in this world as opposed to the real world. The man then gives them directions on how to get to Radodorbo. The only problem with that is that it's on the other side of the continent. He says that it would take them roughly 30 days to travel that distance on horseback. With only 40 days to complete the quest, their only option is to find some horses before they start going there. The man suggests attending a nearby martial arts tournament. The prize for winning the tournament is 3 horses. While heading to the city where the tournament is being held, they are then ambushed by a group of bandits. They go to fight with the bandits, but when Yuusuke stabs one of them, he can hear the Game Master's voice. The Game Master explains explains that it's prohibited to deal damage to any humans. As punishment, Yuusuke loses experience points and his chef skill gets demoted. They try making a run for it, but Shindo ends up getting captured by them. The group contemplates whether they should go on without Shindo because technically they don't need her to complete the quest. They decide the best course of action is to have Yuusuke go and attend the tournament while Kasue and Yuka go to rescue Shindo. Their rescue operation goes extremely well as they get captured also. Yuusuke realizes that they've been captured on the map, so he goes around killing goblins until he gets another job roulette. This time he doesn't get royally fucked on this thing, so he becomes a creature wizard. The creature skills are fucking irrelevant, so he attends the tournament and gets killed in the first round. After the fight, he talks with the woman who had defeated him named Kahabell. She winds up winning the entire tournament and the horses. Yuusuke offers to give her the location of the bandits' camp where the others are being held in exchange for the horses. They take it to Kahabell's leader, who agrees to this. After the deal is made, Kahabell also offers to train him in sword fighting. He learns a little bit more about fighting, and then Kahabell, along with her men, launch the attack on the bandit camp. During the fight, Yuusuke realizes that as long as he's just countering and not attacking directly, then he won't lose any experience points. Getting desperate, the bandits decide to unleash their secret weapon in a berserker. This forces Kahabell to bust out her secret weapon in Roika Yeksa. She gets her precious sword knocked away, so Yuusuke has to jump to her defense and block the next attack. One of the perks of being a creature wizard is that he has increased persuasiveness, so he tells the berserker there's someone behind him. He turns around and this creates an opening for Kahabell to go in and finish him with one blow. He manages to get to the others and explain everything that had happened. Kahabell chimes in and offers to take some time off along with some of her men to be their escort. And in return for this, she wants two things. The first thing being that when they arrive, they have to return her horse. And the second condition is that she gets to train all four of them in how to fight with swords. Episode 5. We get a quick flashback of Kasue growing up. She was always failing PE because of her condition. This is what made her want to go into pharmaceuticals so that she could make a drug that would heal her and her mom, who are both afflicted with the same condition. She also appears to be struggling with all of the violence unfolding in this world and watching all of the bandits get killed. Turns out the reason Kahabell wants to train the heroes is because she has some sort of weird fetish where she likes cutting flesh. Because they're heroes, she can cut away at them all she wants and they'll just regenerate. Two of Kahabell's subordinates went out to get supplies and were ambushed by goblins and injured. We see that Yuusuke has the ability to enhance their cellular metabolism so that they can heal a little bit faster. Seeing this makes Kasue reflect on how useless she is, so she goes back to training harder with Kahabell. The convoy then comes across a horde of goblins. Kahabell offers to wipe them out, but Yuusuke insists that they need the combat training, so they'll go fight instead. Everyone's doing pretty well except for Kasue, who had gotten her first kill on a goblin and is struggling to process it. The event ultimately increases her resolve though, as she gets more mentally sturdy in the concept of killing something. The next day, while traveling, they see an army getting attacked by monsters. They decide that this could be some sort of event and Game Master could be watching. This makes them decide to split up, which makes no fucking sense, so Yuusuke and Kasue go to fight the monsters while everybody else continues on. They both get fucked up the first time around, but when Kasue responds, she gets a new idea. Since she isn't strong enough to lift her longsword, she waits till one of the monsters rushes her and then summons it at the last second. The monster runs into it and dies, and then reinforcements show up in the form of Kahabell because apparently that plan just went out the window. Yuusuke absorbs magic from the monster's blood, which allows him to heal all of the injured people. When they talk to one of the soldiers, they find out that these guys are soldiers from the kingdom of Diok. They're acting on orders from their king to transport heretics to Radadorbo. Once they had arrived, they're planning on executing all of the heretics. It's possible that these heretics are the goods that they're supposed to deliver to Radadorbo, but once they're there, since they're going to be executed, they're not really sure what they're supposed to do. Episode 6. The heroes discuss what to do because this could be a test to see if they're actually willing to sacrifice innocent people to complete the quest. They decide to escort the prisoners to Radadorbo, and then once they're there, they're gonna try and stop the execution. They convince the Diok commander Camille to let them travel along with them. While traveling, a missionary named Facel decides to fill everybody in on what's going on. The kingdom of Diok kills all Ardara's believers. Because of this, the Diok soldiers are planning to execute the heretics. This is because the kingdom is divided between citizens who worship the king and citizens who worship both the king and God. Things escalate until eventually it leads to the prohibition of the religion as well as the execution of the believers. They then go to ask Camille why he's undergoing this dangerous journey just to execute some heretics. He explains it's to set an example example. Radadorbo is the first place the believers show up at when they're escaping to this continent. He is hoping that the executions will send them a clear message right as they arrive. The convoy decides that in order to avoid some steep slopes, they have to take an underground route. This path turns out to be a trap by the Deok soldiers. Since they're now locked inside the tunnels, they have to continue on through an assortment of puzzles and booby traps. Yuusuke gets caught in one of the booby traps and knocked down a huge ledge to where he can't get back to the others. They figure out how to get past the booby trap but have to leave Yuusuke behind. Yuusuke is able to cut the walls with his cleaver so he can make footholds in order to climb out. Then in the last couple of scenes, the others come across a gargoyle who is going to be their last challenge in the tunnels. Episode 7. Yuusuke is making decent progress but keeps falling to his death while doing it. Kahabell is then stabbed by the gargoyle and falls off a ledge. As the gargoyle goes to finish off Shindo, she steps on a bat and kills it, giving her level 10. Time freezes and she gets to play the job roulette. She rolls warrior, and since time was frozen, this gives her an opportunity to think about her attack and creates an opening on the gargoyle. Despite creating the opening, she still can't penetrate the gargoyle's defenses. She then thinks back on Kahabell's training and how she should aim for the heart. With that thought in mind, she is able to stab the gargoyle in the heart and defeats it right as Yuusuke is showing up. He jumps in the water and gets to Kahabell in order to save her. He then continuously heals her while restoring his MP with monster's blood until he eventually passes out. My boy's kind of in there though, because she is moved by this gesture and decides to kiss him. She then talks about the girls about how her country has a ranking system for knights. Out of the 3,000 people in the rankings, she is ranked 70th. Within the ranking system, only the top 100 are able to gain the title of knight. Her father is ranked 2nd, her older brother is ranked 8th, and her younger brother is ranked 15th. When Yuusuke wakes up, he comes to a realization. The quests up until this point have been rather vague. The first one was to kill a goblin, but it didn't specify which type. The next one was to find 2 settlements, but it didn't specify which settlements to find. He suggests operating under the assumption that this could mean any goods. On the other hand, if the heretics do turn out to be the goods, they have to take that into consideration too. In the last couple of scenes, they decide the best thing to do is of course split up. Episode 8. When they split up, they're gonna have one group go after the Deok soldiers, while the other group goes to find any cargo heading towards the city. Team A consists of one of Kahabell's underlings, Kasui and Shindo. That of course leaves Kahabell, Yuka, and Yuusuke in the other one. Team A travels along the main road looking for cargo to help escort. Meanwhile, Team B is tracking where the Deok wagon had gone so they can find him. The only problem is that before Kahabell had left the convoy, she had noticed something. The Deok soldiers were using messenger birds, presumably communicating with the kingdom they're from. The message most likely contained information on them trying to trap Cortonel soldiers. If their message was sent and then their troops go missing, they could assume that Cortonel had done something to them. Because they're such a confrontational nation, they can then use this to declare war. Deok has 10 times as many soldiers as Kahabell's country, so they need to avoid this at all costs. Later that night, Yuusuke and Yuka approach Camille saying they want to negotiate. They lie to Camille saying that Yuusuke had converted to the religion of Arteros. He then tells him that he's there to negotiate for his 3 fellow believers. If Camille doesn't hand him over, then he threatens to spread the teachings all over the world and they can't stop him because he's immortal. They give Camille and his men the rest of the night to think it over. Yuka then comes back later saying that she wants to sell Yuusuke out. Camille orders one of his men to go with him and Yuka to find where Yuusuke is while the other stays behind to watch the prisoners. After walking for a bit, they realize that Yuka was just leading them away, so they take her into custody. When they get back to the camp, they find Yuusuke there waiting for them. He claims to have killed all of the prisoners they were escorting to get revenge on them for trapping them in the cave. He took one of the heretics' clothes and put it on the guard who was watching the prisoners. Then once Camille had arrived, Yuusuke burns the guard alive to make it seem like he had killed the preacher. They then send their cargo running and escape with the last remaining horse. Camille can only explain to the higher-ups that he betrayed a hero and they got revenge on them. This ensures that no war will break out between the two countries. After their little act is over, Yuusuke and Yuka return to a cave where the prisoners are hiding. Yuka is very conflicted after killing the guard who was watching the prisoners. Yusuke's logic is that since they're alive, they can't value the characters in a game more than themselves. He had also lost experience on his wizard ranking, downranking him to level 7. Episode 9. We see Camille and his last remaining man sending a messenger bird back to Deok explaining their failure. As soon as the bird is gone, Kahabell comes out of nowhere and kills both Camille and his man to get revenge for her fallen comrade. Now we hop on over to the King of Deok, who meets with a mysterious new character. They discuss that they need to find a way to deal with the heroes and kill them permanently. While continuing on to Radadorbo, we see that Kahabell is struggling with her feelings for Yuusuke and wants to find an opportunity to confess to him. Yuka Yuka had picked up on this, so she starts trying to play matchmaker for Yuusuke and Kahabell. This leads to a bunch of filler content that is completely fucking irrelevant. Kasue and Shindo had finally found a wagon going to Radadorbo. That night, Kahabell finally gets her opportunity to talk to Yuusuke, but it turns out all she wanted to say was that she was grateful to him for helping avenge her comrade. The quest ended when they exposed Camille and his men for their atrocities and delivered their severed heads to the guards at Radadorbo. Everybody reconvenes after the quest is completed, and now all they have to do is traverse more of the map. Episode 10. To be as efficient as possible, they decide to split up to traverse more of the map quicker. A blizzard then rolls in out of nowhere, making it difficult for the heroes to explore the land. Yuusuke fears that if they die out in this cold, they won't be able to revive and they'll just be permadead. To no one's surprise, Kasue is the first one to collapse and fall unconscious. Soon it's only Yuusuke left trying to traverse the map because he has the best equipment to survive in the cold. Out of nowhere, he comes face to face with the Cyclops Yeti and has to fight it. He manages to kill the Yeti, but then he realizes that the reason the Yeti was attacking him is because it had children that it was trying to feed. Without the adult Yeti around, it's likely that the babies will starve or freeze to death, but Yuusuke refuses to worry about that since they're virtual. In the last couple of scenes, Yuusuke suddenly falls into a chasm and dies. Episode 11. Yuusuke had fallen into some caves which raised his body temperature enough to revive. Kasue has officially died and can't revive because she's stuck in the storm. Meanwhile, Shindo continues walking because the winds have calmed down a little bit and sees a village in the distance. While she's heading towards it, she realizes that she's walking on ice and breaks through into the water. This kills her without the chance of being revived also. While exploring the dungeon, Yuusuke comes across dead end after dead end. When he has nowhere else to go, an earthworm suddenly appears and creates a tunnel for him to crawl through. While crawling through it, a predator sneaks up behind him and eats him. Now that he's dead, only Yuka is left alive. She considers giving up, but then hallucinates characters from an anime she used to watch that encourage her to go on. It looks like they're never going to be able to make it in time until she comes across a woman named Fatina. Fatina has a big ass cat, so she decides to give Yuka a ride. She is able to complete the quest just in time, and everybody else respawns to talk to the Game Master. For Yuka's question to the Game Master, she decides to ask if this world is actually a virtual world. The Game Master explains that it's not a virtual world, but a parallel world to theirs. The only things that are virtual in this world are actually the players, which is why they can come back to life. This makes Yuusuke reflect on the fact that he had actually killed a living person. Episode 12. They're all transported back to the real world, but Yuusuke still isn't handling this realization too well. Everyone realizes that even though they were in the other world, their stamina has actually gotten better. While walking, he gets a message from the Game Master asking, now that you've killed somebody, what are your honest feelings? He's still very conflicted, so he just deletes the message without responding. Since he didn't respond, the Game Master shows up at his house disguised as a little girl. When asked again, he just says that he wished he wouldn't have done it, and the only reason he did is because he thought they were virtual. Now that that's settled, the Game Master then wants him to go and meet their next player. They go to a Chinese restaurant where the Game Master points out a man at the end of the counter who is formerly a drug dealer. She then explains that the next player is about to come in 20 seconds and kill the man. Yuusuke steps in to deter the attack and fights with all of them. He is able to identify which one the player is and pulls off his mask, coming face to face with the 19-year-old Tori. The man Tori is working for realizes that something is going wrong, so he comes in and pulls a gun on Yuusuke. To prevent him from dying, the Game Master gives him a glove. The glove lets him access his creature wizard abilities in this world, so he is able to order the man to stop from pulling the trigger. This gives him the opportunity to beat the shit out of the man and convinces Tori and his little brother to escape from the police. Yuusuke comes to the realization that the Game Master is preventing bad things from happening to the players so that once they're in the other world, they will still want to come back to this world. If Tori and his brother were arrested, then they wouldn't care about getting back to this world, which is what the Game Master is trying to prevent. This doesn't change Yusuke's thinking on how he values people's lives. He believes that people who can be convinced to kill should die, so he doesn't actually care about Tori or his well-being. The only value he sees in Tori's life is the ability to complete the next quest. This is a pretty shitty take and not exactly the answer the Game Master was looking for. The Game Master points out that he looks at the value of human lives like an anonymous internet user. Yusuke completely agrees and says that he has delusions of grandeur, thinking that he is right and everybody else is wrong. Even though he can identify that this is delusional thinking, he still chooses to embrace it. But anyways, I'm gonna be doing the next season, and you can find that on the left side whenever I'm finished with it, or you can check out all the I'm Standing on a Million Lives recaps in the playlist on the right side. You can also find the links in the description below, and the only thing I hate more than intros is outros.